may take you up on that.
Julie's
Hey,
making
Julie's
copies,
making it.
so she's bringing them down, but I don't want to wait just for her. Okay, so. All right, so let's go ahead. John, can you hit the gavel, just so we can.
Ready to start.
So, welcome to the July Academic Achievement Committee meeting. We will start with public comment. And since there's no public comment, we will move, do we have any instructional council?
Oh, they're in recess.
Okay. Legislative update, you want to go ahead and just talk a little bit about we're not having a full-fledged legislative update, but since there has been stuff reported in the media about what we're doing next year because of or discussions that are happening in society, get a brief update on that.
Yeah. So I'm not John Helmholtz, but certainly we've been following the changes for the assessment, the state assessment. The last that we heard from the state is that we will have a MEP and MEP assessment. It will take place in the spring of 2015. It will no longer be administered in the fall. The MEP assessment, however, will be more rigorous than the assessment that we've seen in the past. I'd like to share, however, we received that communication coming from the state indicating that it would be MEP, that it would be more rigorous, that there would be some smarter balance kinds of assessment question items on the assessment. There was a follow-up comment in yesterday's Grand Rapids Press, however, that sort of, I would almost say, didn't quite align with the communication or our understanding of the communication coming from the state, in that it pretty much told teachers to stay on course with the manner in which they prepared for MEP in previous years. We do have some confusion yet in the system in terms of what it will look like. We do know for sure that it will be a reflection of Common Core state standards. The assessment itself, however, and the format of the assessment, whether or not it will be online, the kinds of assessment items, whether they are primarily performance-based assessments or if they are of the nature that we've seen in the past, that has not been clear. My concern with the test is that I think everything that we're trying to do in terms of forging ahead and reflecting Common Core state standards is the right thing to do. However, we are experiencing some anxieties around what students will actually be asked to do on that assessment. It does make a difference, especially to districts that services or districts that service the demographics that we service. When we take a huge shift in what we expect to do in terms of performance, we would like to have the time to prepare, because knowing the content is one thing, but knowing the actual format and how to respond, for example, to changes like a digital assessment or a performance-based assessment, that's a different type of challenge that sometimes can mask what students actually know.
Can you give an example?
Well, the example that I would share most would be the whole piece around whether or not the test is administered online. If a child can read from a typical tool such as a textbook, that could be masked by the fact that they're asked to demonstrate that knowledge of their reading skills online. Things like being able to maneuver through the technology sometimes can be a challenge for students in and of itself. It's a different skill set. A performance-based assessment also, it's a lot different than a traditional MEP assessment. It's going to be a part of a real-life scenario. There are many parts and many skills that are part of one assessment question. So it is important. It's important for us to know. exactly what the assessment, or we will never know exactly what the assessment, but we would like to know the skills that we should be preparing students for. We've done some of those things in terms of changing our assessments and aligning our syllabi to the Common Core state standards. But the clarity, it's just good educational practices to clarify the expectations. We firmly believe that when we have adequate time and clarity of expectations, it gives everybody the opportunity to be successful.
The only good thing might be that it's moved to the spring.
We appreciate the fact that it is moved to the spring. We've had lots of conversation about the impact of summer loss. And we know that kids can lose up to 1/2 of their school year learning just based on summer loss. So we're trying to be intentional even in addressing that. Some of our friends from the library are here today. They'll even talk about how they have promoted learning over the summer. But we all need to be cognizant of the importance of continuing learning over the summer, even though the test has been moved to the spring.
Sure.
It is an advantage. But clarity is important, and I'm sure I am expressing the sentiment of all districts.
But you're not quite sure if they're gonna do it on computers or not, or you are sure?
I'm not clear, we're not clear on that yet. I am guessing that there will be some options out there that districts will have an option of using an online or computer-based, but that's my assumption. And as I've stated before, the clearer that the state can be for us, and I know that they are trying to handle some huge shifts in what we expect students to do. So I understand too that that's not easy, but the clearer that they can be, I think it speaks of just good assessment practices, is just to be very clear about what kids must know. We always begin with assessments with the end in mind. When we develop a unit of instruction, we begin with the end in mind. So the assessment will, understanding not only the targeted out skills and content, but how kids must demonstrate that understanding is important.
Do you know have they made it clear what the timeline will be for?
We heard that in our last communication that the earlier timeline may be altered some, but we are pretty sure that the assessment will take place in the spring.
But you don't know when
The
you'll
exact-
know what the assessments are
No.
gonna be.
What I've been no, I don't. I don't know the timeline. What I'm hearing is that it may eventually be a more flexible timeline, where schools there will be a window of assessment, and schools may be able to choose actually the period within that window, as we've done with other assessments in the district.
And then what about the MME? Is that gonna just proceed as it has been?
I have not heard of changes with MME.
There will be a college admissions test, which right now is the ACT, that's just been confirmed, and the work keys test will still be in place for the upcoming school year. So those things are etched in stone moving forward, we will have those. There will be a day 3 Michigan meet-like component, so not much will change there, but everything else is still up in the air. But there will still be those 2 examinations at least that we've already been focusing on.
Explore plan will no longer be in existence.
How much information are we letting our parents know about in regards to, like, the spring testing that's gonna happen? How much foreknowledge do they have in terms
Well,
of,
we've been
you know, what's
cautious.
coming up, even though there
We've
seems
been
to be a lot
cautious.
of?
We've worked with our parent university, and we've scheduled a couple of meetings. I have to say some of the attendance was not what we expected, but we've been very cautious because we don't feel that we can firmly communicate accurate information at this time. And the same is true with our teachers. When we know the exact direction, certainly we will communicate that. One of the things that we have begun to do is that we met with a parent group to begin talking about Common Core State Standards, adjustment to the report cards. The information that they, and the feedback that they gave us was invaluable. I walked away stating, and very impressed with the level of knowledge and sophistication of our parents. They just provided us very valuable, extremely valuable information. We shared that with our principals today. So one of the things that we will do is take their feedback in terms of their requests for very clear and aligned report cards, and we've already began that work. And they also asked for teacher tools or parent tools that would allow them to intervene if their students are struggling. So some of our work this summer has just been putting together, working with Mr. Mickens and other individuals to put together a website that would allow parents to look at their report cards and then go to the website and get information about what their children should know and ways to intervene if that should become necessary.
What about the parents who don't have computers in their home, who can go to the website?
But we will have to work on that, but we're hoping that, it's been our experience that most of them do. We're willing to, however, make that adjustment. And put out hard copies. We are also have been asked to make sure that we not only have Spanish, but some of the other more prominent languages in the district. So in any way that we can accommodate parents, and we have decided to use the group that has been working with us to continually get feedback from them, in any way that we feel that we can support them, because we understand the importance of the parent and their expressed interest in what the students are doing and how we get to work with our kids once they get to school. So we will work with them and we'll take their feedback. If there are things that we can do, they have asked us for an online grade book on and on. It was the parents that actually suggested that we do more with online tools.
There's some people behind you that want to help out with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our libraries, would be critical, certainly link with the 4 zones that they're working with. They've been working with a lot of parent leaderships. That would be a key partner to inform in terms of what needs to happen so that so it can trickle to those parents that they're working with that come to our board meetings now and so forth, so
The
that'd be very
superintendent
critical.
has asked us to put a full court press on literacy. And we know that the school day doesn't offer us enough opportunity to do what we need to do in order to turn our scores in literacy around. We still have the same amount of time, but we also know that students will have to read volumes in order to raise their achievement scores, not only on our common assessment, but specifically on our nationally normed assessments. So I'm looking forward to that with excitement. I think our parents play a critical role in educating them about what they can do. I think maybe we've sent a message about the school knows it all, but there are things that parents can do to promote literacy, mathematical fluency, on at home, and we know that it can be impactful. So, any suggestions, I would be the first to say that we don't know all the answers, but I will say that we understand and appreciate the importance of our parents.
You mentioned earlier about groups who were helping or working with you with the parents. Can you name some of those groups for me?
Well, the parent groups, are you saying parent groups?
Well, you said groups that were working with the parents or helping you guys get the information out.
Get to the parents? Well, we worked through our parent university, and I'm not even sure how they went about securing the names of folks that came, but we just had a luncheon on this last occasion just to gain their insights. And I'm just going to be very honest, I did not expect what we received in terms of the gift of their insights. We'll use them again.
Parent University is growing?
I don't know what their exact numbers are, But they are the folks that did the reaching out for us and identifying the parents. And my response was that they did an excellent job. I did not expect that they would give us the insights. They were very clear in terms of things like, we want to know how our kids measure up to other kids across the nation. We want to know, we want the report card to give us enough information that if we want to intervene at home, that it would give us that kind of information. They wanted Lexile score, so if they go into the library, they could request an exact Lexile score. So those are the kinds of things that we can follow up on. And if it makes sense to our parents, we're going to try to make sure that it is a part of our future report card and reporting system.
Okay, we should move on to the others.
If I didn't answer that, let me know and I'll try to.
I just have one comment.
Yeah.
But we still have in most of the schools fairly active PTAs or whatever we're now calling them. Because a lot of people aren't gonna go
PTCCs?
to, whatever the latest terms. But, it's one thing to go to parent university, but most people are comfortable in their school where they're comfortable. So I don't want to overlook that.
Well, thanks for adding that, because I think that we as a board should have some idea about what at least the assessment landscape is gonna be looking like for next year, and,
Not
because we
settle
get
yet,
asked,
yeah.
huh? I mean, to the extent that it's
Moving
knowable.
target.
Yeah.
So, I know that we have on here, the reports to the committee, but we do have community. Should we go with the community partners first?
Yes,
Is that-
okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Just in terms of what, but you guys behind, is that,
Yes, we have Mr. Solis from Seeds of Promise and Grand Rapids Public Library.
okay, all right, good. Yeah, it's just that she wants to do that over time. It's this kind of, these are two of them.
So, hello, and thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Evans, and thank you to the board for accepting, contribute, to know a little bit about the contributions that we have as far as Seeds of Promise is concerned. I do have a little presentation. Prior to last Thursday, I think I was emailed and asked to submit the presentation electronically. Everything was submitted, and I don't know if you got it or not, but I'll be using that as my notes. Walking notes today. With me is Ken Stigsma, who is a key contributor, also an ex-board member, but now serves as an advisor to Seeds of Promise. He leads and is the director or supervisor, what are you? You're the owner of Help Build Communities, in which a lot of the Seeds of Promise foundation and structures built upon. He'll chime in when we describe a little bit more of that.
And can you introduce yourself too? as
Yes,
well?
Jesus Solis. I'm a current retiree from the Grand Rapids Public Schools since 2012. Had numerous positions at different levels. Last one was the supervisor of fine arts. Basically took an early out due to the fact that my parents were ill. My mom just passed away this last January.
Sorry to hear that.
Condolences to
Sorry. And my dad is suffering from lung cancer, and so I needed to be there for them. And so he's done some recovery, but at the same time, I also saw myself coming back to the community, and I've been with Seeds of Promise for the last 5 years, and so I've engaged myself directly. And I am the lead for the education impacting, and we've been working very closely with Dickinson Academy. It's an introduction. Okay.
Just keep going with it.
Well, if that's enough.
Yes,
of an
yes,
introduction?
yes, that's good.
Okay, and like I
Thanks.
said, you do have some of the information. I want to start out with Seeds of Promise, and it's kind of odd because the presentation is behind you, but that's okay. As far as the history of Seeds of Promise, basically, Ron Jimerson is the coordinator. He's the founder of Seeds of Promise, and this happened around 8 years ago. And through the collaboration of Grand Valley State University and Cascade Engineering, bottom line philosophy, Grand Valley University Sustainable Community Development Initiative, and also with Ken's build communities, which is a top bottom up philosophy. And I'll go through some of these things in a minute. I just wanted to let you know we'll be covering some history today, and where we're at as far as how did we select the community and everything else. We'll be talking about the mission and vision of the Seeds of Promise, what collaborations we currently have, impact teams, of how the Seeds of Promise structure is built, and how we are actually creating significant impact to a community that, and I'll show you some data that has really been overseen or has had a difficult time trying to get back up. And so our philosophy has been, instead of gentrification of other agencies and or major corporations coming in and taking over the community, we want to make sure that we train the neighbors how to advocate for themselves. And then the bottom-up philosophy is exactly that the neighbors are the ones that are leading. They're the ones that are telling us what issues and what's important to them in order for them to go forward. There's no activity that we take on unless it has the initiative from the host neighbors. As far as impact teams are concerned, we have several. The first one is the host neighbors leadership. Through a grant from the Kellogg Foundation, we trained about 28 host neighbors in how to advocate for themselves, how to conduct meetings, how to govern themselves, and Robert Rules of Order, etc. So they've now have a host neighbors and governance board, and that's the leadership that they have. Of course, everything was under the board of Seeds of Promise. Housing impact team has been growing significantly. Right now, we've even acquired a grant of $194,000 in order to help the local communities beautify the communities and or restore many of the housing in the neighborhood. We have a job and wealth creation, which again, it's with the help with Ken. We now are trying to access how do we become sustainable, meaning we don't, even though we're getting grants right now, what we want to do is make sure that businesses and stuff, it's sort of like a whole Hubu or Jubu philosophy, that the same neighbors will be gaining their own money for themselves. So we got a whole program set that eventually Seeds of Promise will be self-sustaining, self-running with the money that they generate by acquiring jobs. Of course, we have the Education Attainment Impact Team, and that's the one that I'm leading, and we'll focus a little bit more on. We have the Wealth and Health and Nutrition, who've also just got a significant grant from Grand Valley State University and also St. Mary's Hospital, who are coming in. This particular team created a survey and surveyed the entire community, and based on their needs and wants, they come up with a grant that was granted, and then this is the first year that it will be being in place. More than anything, neighbors were asking, how do we advocate for having positive health, whether it be nutrition or what to buy or how do we get basic services. So they're going to be putting this program in place, and a lot of this will be done after school program between 6 and 9 at Dickinson to create a community hub so that the people would actually be using that community. We have also, in the absence of SICA, which is the Southeast Neighborhood Association, which folded about a year ago, Seeds of Promise has now acquired the Safe Community Grant from the City of Grand Rapids, about $43,000, to make sure that we have safe communities and that we're doing the tracking of crime and we're letting the neighbors know through our host neighbors and everyone involved. Host Neighbors Community Projects, there's since this training from the Kellogg Foundation, which was supposed to be about 3 years, this last year is called, we're calling it the boots on the ground, meaning now the host neighbors that have been trained, they're going into the community, into each of the homes, and each of in coming up with projects. One of the projects that I can remember, for example, is a cleanup community. For the longest time, some neighbor would do the cleanup, but the other ones didn't want to do it. They thought it's like, however, now this has changed. Now everybody's advocating and coming together and doing the whole community and building pride and making sure that they have a safe community and something that's beautified. Moving on to where the education impact team has actually been achieving this in 2003, and this is through our annual report that we just had from Grand Valley State University. One of the major programs that we've had was the Booker T. Washington Academy Project and the Carter GW the Reading Program. And this is run by actually a gentleman, his name is Khalif Akbar, who is a GRPS employee as a custodian there assigned to Dickinson. He not only does he live in the community, but also has done significant volunteer work with them. He's been tracking a lot of the scores to making sure that not only is their students gaining reading test scores, but also they're learning about self-esteem, about learning about how to become role models, how to help others, how to build a certain amount of character within their schools.
Ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How is he tracking scores, and what type of reading programs do they have?
Well, we work very collaborative with the principal. So whatever scores comes in from the MEP test scores that we have, and I'll show you in a minute. I have a graphic that I can show you. Okay. The SENSE program is basically a program that by two host neighbors who have put in place, and what they do is recognize any of the students who are doing any leadership programs within the school. What they do is that they have a celebration towards the end of the year, and they give them certificates and or recognitions. So this is again, it's a program that came by the host neighbors themselves. This is something that we initiate. But also the Grand Valley State University tutoring program, it used to be after school, but this last year, we actually built it in within the school. So Grand Valley State University students who are going into the college programs are coming in and tutoring the students directly. This summer, they decided to extend the program. Even though Grand Rapids did not select this Dickinson Academy as one of the summer schools, we thought it was important enough, and we volunteered to pay for transportation of students, high school students who are in the TRIO program, are definitely wanting to go and get be in this education program. So it was, in a way, it's kind of like a grow your own educators and teachers. And so we want to give them an experience of tutoring kids. And so we have that program, and it only met for 4 days, but it was 4 successful days for them. Adult literacy classes in English as a second language and skill classes from the West Michigan Literacy who is also a partner with the Education Impacting. It's been very helpful. They provide all these services. They have their own grants. All they do is just basically ask the school to make sure that they have the parents coming in. And then, of course, last year and this year again, we're going to be having our Back to School Festival at Dickinson Academy. And it will take, this time, it will take around August 23rd of this year. Economic impact. How are we getting this money? Well, right now, this is the reality as far as what we have. The Kellogg granted us for 3 years, $3,000. This is the last year for it. So it is coming to an end, but at the same time, we maximize and build capacity. Fifth Third's Business Loans Challenge. The first picture that you saw were some of the winners of the $27,000 that was granted as a loan to them to build their own businesses and entrepreneurial services to the community. North Point has agreed and will be granting $60,000 this year. Grand Valley State University St. Mary's program is $194,000. That all those have to be in place. The city of Grand Rapids, as I mentioned earlier, $43,000. And we, within the last week, we applied for the LOOP program. It's a promise. In the past, it's been Campfire USA. We wrote an application and wanted to make sure that we were embedded within the after-school program. We wrote a coordinator/director's position. We're only doing one school, unlike some of the other providers. They have 6 or 7 or 8. We're only doing one school because this is the only school that we are so involved in and wanted to make sure that we build capacity at every level. Not only do the parents know them directly, but also the host neighbors know the kids directly. Volunteers and pro bono services came about $13,000, just basically all the work that I do, that Ken does, that everybody, we're not getting a single cent. So it's all volunteer works, and also when Grand Valley State University students come in, and it's interesting how all this energy has been building up because people want to eventually want to be part of it. It's something totally different than the top down saying, you do this, I'm gonna hire you to do this. This is totally the opposite. What we, in the history that we have, is we train the neighbors to become the leaders, to become the board members, to become the bosses. And for them, they've never heard of anything like that. They just thought, thank you, Ken, for that. These are some of the pictures of the places. And what are some of the challenges? This last year, unfortunately, we had a change of principal from last year. We lost the after-school program. There were many challenges that came up, but with those challenges, we knew how to eventually turn them onto opportunities. So all these things have been partly adding up to where we're at right now. As far as looking ahead, whether we get grants or we don't get grants, we've established a system that we will be generating funds to provide all these services in the future. And then, more than anything, due to the fact that Seeds of Promise has surveyed their parents about what do they want in their community. They want to see a community center, that the history in that community is important and the culture and the curriculum is important. And I know Grand Rapids Public Schools have been working with the curriculum to build that curriculum for us. As far as closing remarks, I know it's this, because we might have got 10 minutes. We're super excited to be involved. You got a copy of what's Grand Valley's magazine, and that is an article that they wrote about Seeds of Promise and where we're at. Welcome you to read it. Any questions? I'm sorry I'm rushing through that.
That's a lot.
Yes, sorry about that.
So the after-school programs, the Loop program, so the Seeds of Promise is creating its own after-school curriculum
Correct.
for that?
No. Yes and no. We will be following the curriculum that Grand Rapids sets for the school.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is, part of it is a community-based history and culture.
Right.
What we're doing in the after-school program is that we have, our first goal was to make sure that we extended the learning. As Mrs. Evans said earlier, kids can't lose time. So we're extending the learning of students from 6 to 9. That was our first goal. So that in the evening programs, not only the parents came in, but also the children come in so that we can give them. For every hour that they had of academics, they will get an hour of, let's say, recreation, soccer, tennis, kickball, or karate, or something physical. But we're extending that now to the after-school program, and that's part of our curriculum that we will be extending. The current partners there potentially might be hired would be Boy Scouts, Mind Boggle, School Careers Progressions, Literacy Center for Western Michigan, Cross-Court Tennis Campfire would be part of it. The True Success programs, the vocal music workshops. So those are just some of the ones that we're being in communication with and that make part of the partners with the education team.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Two things. One, I like what Seeds of Promise is doing. It has made a great impact. I know Ron Jimison very well. But I want to go back to that reading data that you said that they were measuring. I didn't get it. If you
Yeah,
showed
I
it up
didn't-
there, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I did say that. I don't know if I can turn this thing on or not.
Yeah, I don't have to see it. If you can just tell me how he's doing it and if there is an impact that's being made.
Here's a packet that I sent them forward. This is a reading test scores, this is a math test scores, and this all comes from the state Department of Education. And you can see it right there about where we're at with the test scores of the students. Based on that, we provide the services, and then we again test them the following year to try to find out what gains have been made. Yeah, that's the one I gave them. Oh.
Yeah,
I said, it was an electronic.
Got this. I just wanted
But
this.
all that information is in there?
Yeah,
No,
it's in
yeah,
here.
we-
Oh, you did, okay.
We just don't have, we didn't have the,
We don't have that one.
this one.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
thanks.
We can make copies of it, if we can have that.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I just think it's important that, you know, everything that Cesar Promise is doing is making an impact, and that impact also can infiltrate itself over into the, school system.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm very concerned about academic achievement, more so now than ever, because of the data that we've been receiving over the past couple of years. The improvement has to be made, and it's gonna take the whole community to do it.
That's right.
That's gonna be very important, and how we operate that and infiltrate that is gonna be important as well. So what you guys are doing is good. I would suggest to keep it up. I really strongly believe in the parent participation, and those parents whom don't have a degree and have also improved in their education, that goes a long way as well with the child's learning too.
Earlier today, Mrs. Evans reported about the parent university, GRPS University, and how the parents are coming up with suggestions. This is one of the first things that what we do as well. It's a practice, standard practice. You'll be surprised how many of them have actually learned to take the leadership and then run with it and make significant changes. So one of the stories that we constantly tell, one of the local Popeyes closed and built another on the side. And they eventually asked the community, what do you guys want to do with it? They didn't listen. They went to the city. They asked for beer and wine store. And then the community said, that's not what we said we wanted. So when the city commissioners went up there and he submitted his proposal to be approved, the community of Cesar Promise went in there, knew how to advocate, knew how to come in and do the comments. Eventually they says, this is the data that we have. We got so many other ones. We don't need another one. Instead, please do not approve it. And then they rejected it. To us, that's a success of a parents going out there and advocating for their own community.
And the other thing on top of that, if I may add, is the fact that you have parents now who have gotten diplomas, who feel good about themselves, whereas one time they probably was afraid to even participate or go into a school function because of their own lack of knowledge. So that's growth there. I like that. I like that progress. So I give you kudos.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it hasn't been an easy road, and Ken has been there this whole time. I mean, and it's all a lot of the structure of what he's known and how he shared it. I grew up with 1970s hippies back in the 70s, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I was one of those kids that service to the community was important to me. Because eventually God will provide, not just for you, but for everybody else. So in a sense, why I went into education was the same reason. As an immigrant, as a migrant worker, as a child of 13 kids, to actually do my bachelor's, and even study towards my doctorate, without owning zero cent back to the university, I must have done something right. So I want to share my knowledge with the rest of the community, because I don't want to have an excuse that says, oh no, it's a different day, it doesn't work like that anymore. There is a way.
Yes,
Very
sir.
I'm definitely glad you're still doing it, and Ken, I hope we didn't exhaust you from your comments.
I am flat out worn out.
Try to ask fewer questions of you next time.
Hey, when you got a partner who does such a great job, why say anything, okay?
I have a
Good job,
tendency to lose
Ken.
passion in it, but that's just good. It comes from the heart, So I just hope that the board knows that and what we're doing, and we're going to be a lot more active, especially with the after-school program and the collaboration with everyone.
No, definitely. I
And
want to
the
visit.
fact that I know you guys, like my family, it's like it's coming. Welcome back.
No, welcome back. Yeah, definitely
I see
welcome
you
back.
have Ludi Weddle on your page here. You guys don't know Ludi Weddle.
Thanks
I
for
know
the
you,
invitation.
you have Ludi Weddle on your page. And Ludi Weddle used to be one of our former school teachers here. Yeah, she was in culinary arts. She's a good lady, good lady. Her husband also used to be a school teacher in phys ed.
Mo doesn't know her?
Ottawa.
Who is it?
That's the
why
first
I'm looking
person.
for the name.
Ludi Weddle. That's how I met Roland.
Okay, yeah.
We were together.
So we're changing up the agenda. We just keep changing up the agenda.
Nice to hang out.
One thing that's happened since our last meeting has been
You probably
the,
see me running around with it like a little
Sorry.
kid.
has been the release of the MME scores, and the press has covered it, and I've gotten a couple questions from teachers about what this all means. And so, rather than answering the questions, I thought that we could have Ron. I actually asked Carolyn, and Carolyn did ask Ron. It wasn't Tony that asked Ron. So anyway, to look at the MME data and see what implications it has for us. It evidently is gonna be after at least Ron does his thing. So.
Well, I'm not seeing my iPad show up here. Sam said all I needed to do was connect this and this, and I've done that. If you don't mind, give me just a second.
Sam said that as he was leaving.
As he was leaving.
Seems to be everything's kind of paper.
Well, I was, in my defense, I was asked 5 minutes before.
No, actually,
Everything's been kind of.
It's okay.
I thought
If we
it
hit the
worked.
lights, Julie, will this show a little bit or not?
Yes, I'll work on that.
Looks like I need training to turn off the lights.
You do, man.
Playing with him.
Don't mess with it.
Hey, I know better.
How about this?
Always let the guys do it.
Oh, this one.
That works.
This one.
You all think
Shucks, I'm sorry, everybody.
No, it's.
If you would like to let someone go before me, I can iron it out.
Okay,
You wanna do that?
okay, we're ready.
Let me just, I'll be right back.
Good afternoon.
How's it going?
I'm Marcia Warner. I direct the public library system in the city of Grand Rapids. And this is my superstar Jessica Liddell of the Youth Services Department of the main library.
a fine library it is.
Thank you, Ms. Slade. We are here to talk about one particular part of our DigiBridge initiative. Last fall, we came to the school board and presented to you several initiatives, partnerships between the school system and the public library. And one of those partnerships is the Teen Technology Camp. And we just finished.
I'm sorry. We just
okay.
finished the second, or we're finishing up our
This
second
week,
session.
second session of camp, and so we wanted to come share the enthusiasm with you all. Might I announce our award in the meantime while Jessica's setting up? We are members of a very large and prestigious group called the Urban Libraries Council. We're on the small end. These are libraries like Seattle and San Francisco and Baltimore and large libraries across the country. And we took the DigiBridge initiative this year and we applied for one of their Innovators grants, or Innovators Awards, not grant. And we won for the entire nation for leading learning. The DigiBridge Initiative won that award.
Congratulations.
It was just announced in Chicago last week, and we're hoping to get the CEO of the Urban Libraries Council to come from Washington DC to come to Grand Rapids and present that award in person. But we're very proud of what GRPS and GRPL have done together. So, on to Teen Technology Camp.
Hello, my name is Jessica. I'm the teen librarian at the Grand Rapids Public Library, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the history behind the Teen Tech Camp. This is our second year doing it. Our first year it was a pilot program with just 2 schools, Harrison and C.A. Frost. It was right before we officially made our partnership with the school, so it was the first time we worked with the schools and the first time they worked with us. We planned everything in 6 weeks, and then we did a 4-week-long camp with middle schoolers, and it was fantastic. We had a consistent attendance, and our partnership was just set in stone because the schools supported us with technology and staff, and we provided the mutual support. So fast forward to how we set up our teen tech structure. it looks like there's a little bit issue with loading the graphics on here. Let me see if there's Google Chrome. There is. I'm gonna see while I talk. We set up the structure for the Teen Tech Camp. We center around, we promote digital literacy. So each middle school student gets a Nook filled with 20+ titles, and we pick 2 titles from there that they can choose that we base the whole camp around. So this year we picked Cinder and Dawbones, and then the whole camp is based off of activities to promote them reading those 2 books. And then once they're finished with that, they have tons of other books to explore. We show them some really cool things to do with the Nooks, and it looks like it's, I'll just keep going.
You just have to go with it.
And then all of our kids are signed up for our summer reading challenge, so they get double bonus, which they can track their minutes and still read through the whole summer long. We have 3 levels, and we also do the same theme for the summer reading program, and that usually helps them have a variety of ways to earn prizes over the summer through reading. And let me go to the next slide. We also provide, it's a half-day camp, so it includes morning snacks and lunches. The GRPS this year bused students over, so they provided transportation, and we also provided ride to read passes, which we have in partnership with the bus with the Rapids, and it gives kids round trips. So we had a few that came in every session and they needed a ride to read pass, and it helped them get home and then come back for the next session. During the Teen Tech Camp, we mostly concentrate on college career readiness skills. So it's disguised learning with databases and all types of help them introduce them into college researching and how to navigate, find the stuff that they need in a really fun way. We also base stuff around STEM, as far as they did a lot of science and engineering. Cinder was a sci-fi kind of epic. So they built hovercrafts, they did a lot of robotics. We provided supplementary activities that they were able to go home and build and code. There was also, some kids wanted to build games, so we found some support online for free open source software where they can actually go home without knowing how to code and start designing games. We also did some mapping. Dawbones shows about 3 kids who have to solve like a cold murder case. So they have to go to the library and find old maps of their town and figure out where these places were. So we did a lot of GIS and introductory to the National Geographic, how mapping all those interactive features. So we also work with GVSU to promote, we do a lot of film stuff with them. The kids create a professional book trailer based on the books that they do, and we also ask them through surveys and other types of fun feedbacks to tell us how they enjoyed camp. We get tons of parents that come up afterwards and talk to us about how they were afraid of the library, and now that they sent their kids to camp and they're able to come to the library, they become lifelong learners. I have parents that tell me every week we're going to be in here checking out books just because of camp. So it's just this amazing opportunity that we can foster and promote the lifelong learning as well as being a part of the public schools and help them with their summer reading loss and make sure that that doesn't happen with these kids. Last but not least, we also provide some different kind of job set skills for them. We focus a lot about curiosity, that creativity, developing asking those deeper questions, those critical thinking skills. So the kids get to explore and create and sit there and start asking questions. And we saw in their surveys that they were like, I wish we had more time to spend on this, or fostering that desire to pursue that thirst of knowledge. We also concentrate on collaboration. They work in pairs, they work in groups, we switch them up. A lot of kids, sometimes when their friend doesn't come back, they make new friends. And so we work on communication and building those interpersonal skills that they can use out, whether they go to higher education or straight on the job field. And also we promote transliteracy, which is just making sure that they're able to read, write on a multitude of platforms, whether it's through digital media, through social media, media, becoming that good digital citizen, and knowing that that's important and fostering all those different types of literacies. So for a summary, we had 80 register and sign up this year. We currently have over 50 attendees between the two camp sessions. They are split up. And then we are just loving that we're building every year. We're getting more and more, and so we just hope to future continue this program.
Sounds wonderful. Very exciting.
I have a question. So when the parent is interested in checking out library books and they realize, well, my reading level is at a 5th grade or something like that, how do you guys connect them with other resources or?
Well, we have the Parent University where we went and created a parent book club through the schools, and so we provided the same books that their kids would be reading, and instead of concentrating on what necessarily the teachers would with the kids, it's how the parents can talk to the kids about social issues or life issues that are happening within those books that their children are reading. We've also started Books by the Stack, where teachers, educators, parents, I just had a family the other day come in and get 8 copies of The Mighty Miss Malone by Christopher Paul Curtis, and they were all going to read it on their road trip together, and I printed out discussion questions so I can sit and ask them while they're reading, and we provide all that through our website, and you can come in, we'll give you a tote bag, and you can mix and match. You get them for 6 weeks, so they're extended than our normal 3 weeks, and they're set up just for parents to read with their kids.
Can't you tell why I love this woman? We
That's
dragged her
awesome.
out of Chicago. But,
I have a question too.
we also work closely with the Literacy Center of West Michigan. We work with Link. We work with the West Michigan or the Hispanic Chamber and we, as Jessica reminded me, we have done some ESL parent nights in the individual schools to talk to parents in Spanish about how to help your student research. And so Ms. Evans has educated us to come from a multitude of angles, and this is just one of the 8 initiatives that's a part of this DigiBridge.
And we have seen parents get their own library cards.
We have indeed.
And begin to-
In fact, we have taken a hotspot with us now to several places, including the fall back-to-school picnic, and sign parents up for library cards through those places. We've done something that's not on here, but something that has been a barrier that we were able to overcome is that we were able to offer fine forgiveness. So if you had a card and up to $100 in fines, we've forgiven for families so they can give back and use
That's
again.
great. Wow.
Please forgive my ignorance. When you said repass, I immediately thought about something else. Can you explain what that is?
Did I say repass?
Yeah.
It's a bus.
Oh, Ride to Read.
Ride to Read.
I'm sorry, I didn't enunciate.
Yes, so this is a program that's been going on 8 or 9 years. It's kind of under the radar, but it is a program that we do with the city or the regional metro bus system. I forget what it's called. Whatever the bus system is called. Rapid.
Rapid.
The Rapid. Where we have a card, a bus pass that we pass out at the library that will get them home and to the library. So the only place you can use it, if you're not using it from the bus stop in front of the library, is at your local bus stop to get you to the library.
Yeah, good. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make it clear because I heard
I was
read
talking.
pass. I'm saying, wow, we going to a funeral?
You need to tell me what that means after.
That's the
Not
luncheon
today.
after the funeral.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, we're talking about.
I said, read pass, what are they going to eat at?
Primarily African-American.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Learned that firsthand.
Absolutely.
There are a couple things that I just wanted to mark, and that is, that they didn't mention, and that is some of the work that's being done in our high school. And I hope that we're having an impact on their culture and strategies, because certainly the library is doing so with Grand Rapids Public Schools. Currently, they've been instituting or implementing a database usage program, and every month, we see the usage of databases at our high school level skyrocketing. something that we did not plan for. We had been studying our circulation reports and finding out that our high school students weren't checking out books, the traditional library books. And we know through research that after fifth, sixth grade, students don't read enough, and they start to decline in their reading scores. But what we're seeing is an increase in circulation at the middle school and high school as a result of the work that they've been doing with the databases, within Central Innovation, probably leading the way. That has caused us to rethink our strategies, where we've been very traditional in our approach with the high schools and our purchase of materials. We now know that we have to include more digital content and tools at the high school level. We even had a student that made a video to thank us for including more tools so that they could read at home. And we see them accessing some of the digital materials 24/7 at all hours, even 3 a.m. in the morning, we see them accessing materials. And I think it has just pressed us to think differently about flexibility and not being so traditional in our approach. Kids may not go to the library, but certainly we have to find ways to open up the library to our students 24/7. And finally, I'd just like to thank these ladies. There's some folks that aren't here today, Jan Baker and the literacy supervisors of our district that stood on corners with kids and made sure that they were on the proper buses, principal at Southwest Community Campus. There's just a few of the people that we thank, but most of all, we just thank the ladies that you see here from the Grand Rapids Public Library, because they've been the kind of partner that they always come and say, then what can we do? If this doesn't work, then what's the next thing? What can we do? It's hard to find partners are that open and flexible that will ask. Then if this doesn't work, we don't count you as a failure. We just ask, then what's the next thing? So we learned, we thought we had a good program. We sent letters, postcards, we visited schools, knocked on doors, visited parent nights and meetings, because we think that what we can offer through this experience is well worth the venture.
So with this partnership that we have with the Grand Rapids Library, does that mean that this partnership will help Grand Rapids Public Schools improve its school libraries?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we've stolen one of their former employees to help us to evaluate our shelves, so that we know that we are current. And this particular person that we are utilizing is a former Caldecott judge, and she's been bringing a lot of value to that. But not only that, I think that the greatest value that the partnership has helped us to accomplish is the press around digital content. We have to engage our kids in contemporary devices and strategies for accessing materials, and they have been in the forefront of assisting us. So to answer your question, Reverend Moody, yes, I believe they're bringing value there and also helping us to promote more reading.
One of the things that the Jan Baker has allowed us to do is bring in all the media aids to the library for training. And so we've done database training with the media aids, and we've done book talk training, and we've worked on just went out of my head, customer service training, how to view these young people as your customers and how to individualize their help. And the feedback we got from these training sessions were just really positive. And we've agreed that any training now that we design for our own staff, we will offer and extend to the media aids as well.
So we're already
That's
planning
great.
for next year, and our media aides are very excited about that. I think that we're more organized as a result. We have a target, and that's union, and we expect to see great things happen there in terms of our library.
Not to mention the local library, the neighborhood
Neighborhood libraries.
centers.
Sure.
I mean, I think they're being much more utilized as well because they're finding that it's closer and so forth, and they can get, you know, once they learn how to use something, they can call it, hey, it'll be at this center.
Sure.
So it's great.
And then there's the three-way partnership between the Student Advancement Foundation and the schools and the library, where the
Right,
Student
yeah,
Advancement Foundation has placed computers for the sole use of the students in the libraries. And that continues to go up and down, but it's working, it's working. Dr. Baker, if you're interested, this is the same thing we gave you in the fall, but it'll remind you of what
Oh, right,
the
okay.
initiatives are. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Thanks for your
Our pleasure.
enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I won't bring her back if you can
My
talk
kids, my
like that.
kids, so.
Work with the Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Yeah. That is wonderful.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I know, and our kids are asking for that. Yeah, you're right.
Thanks.
Loved it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's lacking is, because our kids are wanting to read. There's one day a week or something like
All set?
All right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
that. Don't want to use.
Thank you for that brief intermission while we solved our technological difficulties.
As long as you're speaking, I'll get water.
We'll be good to go. So this slideshow is always on my iPad. There are a couple of little formatting challenges that you'll see throughout, but I think you'll get the gist as we walk through. The first slide I would like to show you is trend data from 6 years in the Grand Rapids Public Schools. Notice that in 2008, 2009, when our students first started working on the Michigan Merit Exam with ACT, our scores were at a 16.4. And you'll notice that the scores have gotten incrementally better, with last year being our best year so far. And when I went on the state's website, I may have shortchanged us a little bit because I have 17.5 with a 0.4 increase. The state's website, myschooldata.org, has us at a 17.6, so even higher than what was originally reported. So really, really good news. I'll just walk you through the schools relatively quickly, and I did this at Cabinet in under 10 minutes. Superintendent had us on a timer, and I had a couple of minutes to spare. Notice there's some formatting issues with the word composite down there. That's the overall score. First, we'll look at Grand Rapids Montessori, which they have under 20 students testing, so it's a small sample size. Notice in the fall, their students were at a 17.9. When we reassessed their students in the winter, they went to an 18.4. And in the spring of 2014, when they took the actual ACT, their scores ended up being a 19, which is the highest they've been in school history. And so we're really, really proud of that, and they continue to get better. The next school is City High School, and City last year took a considerable dip, and we had a pretty good jump last year as a district, as I showed you a couple of slides ago. But ironically, City had a significant dip there. And if you look where they were in the fall, they were at a 23.9, in the winter at 25.1, and when they took the actual ACT, they were at a 26.3. That is a huge jump. And they really focused on the areas on which students were struggling. I think they used the attack the gap strategy better than anybody else this year, and hats off to City for having a little dip last year, but having a significant jump this year. If you look at their scores compared to other schools in Kent and Ottawa County, there's no one who even comes close. Even the many of the schools on the Lake Shore, some of the charters that are getting a lot of attention, City scores are considerably higher than theirs. So hats off to City. UPrep. This is another school where the score that is reported on the state's website is 0.2 of a point higher than I'm reporting to you today. My assumption is they're doing some rounding that's a little different than I'm rounding, but I think we'll take it as long as it's going up. Fall scores were 14.8, winter scores were 15.7, and in the spring they were a 16.6. This is where they started this year, this is where they ended this year, and the last slide I'll show you is how those scores compared to the 11th grade class last year. Because although we want to show progress with students from fall, winter to spring, if we as a school district want to move forward, we've got to get better from year to year. So I've got some pretty good slides to show you there. Innovation Central, this is a really, really messy slide, but we put 3 programs into one program. So you have the Central students on the bottom left who were in the School of Health Sciences. You have the Creston students in the middle, which were traditional Creston kids plus GRAPSEP kids. You had the Academy of Design and Construction, which was at Union High School, where the students used exclusively technology for their curriculum. All the scores on the bottom, Central had a 16.3 last year, Creston had a 16.5 last year, ADC had a 15.1 last year. They increased a little bit higher than all of those schools with a 16.59, and they were at a 14.8 in the fall. So that tells you where they are. They're moving in the right direction, but there's really nothing to compare it to unless I give you this messy slide. Ottawa Hills started out relatively low in the fall and made a significant jump in the spring. So Dr. Baker, the last time I was here, you said, hey, listen, this is a school that is doing some really, really good things, considering where they started out in the fall, and that's the same results we're seeing this year. It started out really low at 13.4, got incrementally better in the winter, and then better again in the spring. So that was nice. Southeast Career Pathways. This is a school that was exclusively online. We changed the mode of instruction this year to infuse technology into traditionally taught classes. Southeast Career Pathways has never been close to a 14 ACT, not that it's anything to write home about, but this year they passed the 14 threshold for the first time. Important information about Southeast Career Pathways, as you may know, these are students who had significant challenges in the comprehensive environment. Because they were exclusively online, did not get the interventions that the other schools received, because if we took time away from the online instruction, students would get behind. So when we moved back to a traditional instructional model, we were able to see increases because teachers were able to hone in on those areas on which students were struggling. So,
Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
so I mean,
So much for having a teacher available.
a teacher who infuses technology,
Yes, but
right?
still in all,
Absolutely, absolutely.
let's hear it from teachers.
Union, we started out at a 14.3, a little bit higher than Ottawa, moved it to a 14.9 in the winter, and then in the spring moved it to a 15.6. Preliminary data are showing us that we will more than likely not have a high school on the lowest 5% list. So I'm pretty optimistic about that. That was one of our goals going into this year, but there's an appeals window right now, and that could change some things, but I'm optimistic. So just to show you a snapshot of where we were as a school district in September with each individual school, and where we ended up in March when it really counted. Okay, so city 23.9 to 26.3, and you can read them, but at the bottom you'll see where we were in September and where we were in March. So if you think about September, there's not much going on. You know, students are familiarizing themselves with their teachers. You know, the real interventions don't take place until really the beginning of October. So our kids can do some significant work in a short period of time. And next year is the big year for us, because this will be the third year that we'll be focusing on EPAS, the Educational Planning and Assessment System, Explore, Plan, and ACT. This is the third year where the freshmen will have assessments, the sophomores will have assessments, the juniors will have assessments, and then we address those areas on which they're struggling. So next year's going to be a big year, and I'll show you my goals as we move forward. Writing scores, the best writing score you can have is a 12. If you look at where City was, this is based on ACT's 6-point rubric, which is judged by 2 raters, which will give you a score of 12. City made a jump from 7.44 to 8, which is about a half-point growth. Innovation Central, it was just too messy for me to give you a comparison from 2013. We did have some dips to report in writing. I wanted to share those as well. I mean, it's not all good news in this slideshow. We need to tell you like it is. The Grand Rapids Montessori made a significant jump, keeping in mind it's a smaller sample size, and Southeast Career Pathways, also a small sample size, but made a nice jump as well. One thing that's really, really interesting is that City, being a test-in school, taking the students in the 50th percentile or above, Innovation Central, being an application-only school that accepts every single student regardless of test scores, is very close to the writing scores of City. And the approach that Innovation Central takes is that there is significant professional development on writing a 5-paragraph essay with an introduction, a body, a conclusion that restates his thesis, and it's every single day. So we are going to take what we've learned from that particular building and ensure that everybody gets it. So we learn every single year, but hats off to Innovation Central, where the students have a few more challenges than the students in the highest achieving school in the school district. Work key scores. This was a goal of ours this year to increase the number of students who were workforce ready. If you look at the 2013 numbers, the best way to describe this is the Work Keys has its database. They award a platinum certificate, a gold certificate, a silver certificate, and a bronze certificate. If your student didn't earn a certificate, it means that he does not qualify for many of the jobs in the Work Keys database. At City, every single kid is qualifying for all the jobs in the Work Keys database. Innovation Central, 86%. So it essentially means that in all the schools, over 75% of the kids are workforce ready, at least at the bronze level. Okay? And this is going to be a goal next year. So notice we had some incremental jumps. When you look at Southeast Career Pathways, a significant jump there. And I would say, in our alternative education environment, that might be an environment where students really need those workforce skills, maybe a little more than some other students. So significant jump.
What are the careers that,
So if you qualify for all of the jobs in the Work Keys database, 100%, it's doctor, lawyer, scientist, everything. At the lower end, it's you have the communication skills to work in an entry-level position. So you at least have that. Our goal is 100% moving forward, right? Making some incremental adjustments every single year and getting to that 100%. All of our kids should be able to qualify for entry-level jobs. They all should, right? So nice jumps. GR Montessori, again, small sample size, so 1 or 2 kids can move that significantly, right? Pastor Moody.
I was just gonna say, first of all, it's good to see this key scores.
Absolutely.
Secondly, it says to me that you have some teachers that are teaching.
Absolutely.
And I think that.
Absolutely. Excuse my Detroit Lions screen saver.
They'll be Super Bowl champs.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Public can.
I'm sorry.
I would change that password. So, especially if you have access to grades.
Gee whiz. Sorry about that. We'll have to get that out.
deteriorate into sports, are we?
Sorry.
So what I'm saying is I'm hoping that all of the schools, like you said, get to that 100%.
Absolutely.
And so that meant that somewhere along the line, there are some teachers that are prepared to close the gap.
That's right.
And teach the kids. And so apparently, I know what the city has done in the past, and I'm giving them kudos, but I'm interested in seeing what Innovation Central has done.
And to be quite, what I always say is, I'm proud of all of our schools, because even in the schools where the students are in the 50th percentile or above to get in, we need to work incredibly hard to help those kids become as successful as they possibly can be. But we're only as strong as Southeast Career Pathways, Ottawa Hills, Union, right? The non-test-in, non-application schools where we take every single person, right? So, but we're making nice increases. So here is this shows you what we did this year, and every single school except for one had an increase. And I think that's pretty good. Does it make us highly effective? No, because Union had a slight dip. And as I've said before, we have some significant challenges from year to year with Ottawa and Union, but they many times start with the kids who are the lowest in terms of proficiency and make significant jumps, right? It's going to take some time, and we're working at it. If you go back to our first slide, right, look where we were as a school district in 2008. You know, I will take these gains over huge spikes. So, you know, let's say 2008, 2009, we went to 17.2, and then we were down again. I would look to that as, well, that's an anomaly. What I see here over 6 years is a school district that continues to get better. That's what I'm seeing, right? And this is all on the state's website. This is not Mr. Gorman's presentation of what he thinks it should be. Go to myschooldata.org and you can see all of this. So let me just conclude. You see the scores. Goals moving forward, and Dr. Baker, I thought you said 18 under your breath there. That's the goal for next year. 18 is a score that will get lots of our kids into colleges and universities.
See, and that's one
what
of
we have
the
to
comments I wanted to make, that
Yes.
when we look at these scores,
Yep.
it's also college readiness, what they're gonna be able to do at the college level. And so if they can't read or write,
Absolutely.
you know, and do those kinds of things that are gonna keep them in college as opposed to flunking out,
To and through
then
college.
something really has to happen. And you know, most colleges they're telling us, you know, these kids coming into our colleges need to have this ACT score because this is the level that our professors are teaching at. And if we're not communicating those kinds of things, not only to the kids, but to the parents, our parents need to understand these scores, because then they're gonna start asking their kid, what score are you shooting for? And understanding that
Yeah,
those
that's
scores, if it's an 18, it's gonna get them into most colleges.
I think if you were to ask the students in our high schools, I think if you ask the principals in our high schools, and you're right, it's probably the missing link where we need to do a better job at bringing parents with us along this journey. I think what you will see is there is significant focus to this work, right? Where folks are passionate about their results. At the end of the day, it's simple, but it's also complex.
Right.
I'm going to find out the areas on which you're struggling, and I'm going to address those areas. But I also have 30 kids in my class, all at different levels. And I need to determine how to individualize my instruction to make you better, right? So we're making nice jumps. Let me just go through these really quickly. I think 18 next year, although my principals may not want to hear that, they're doing wonderfully. I think 18 is definitely attainable in the third year of VPAS, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing results, and I'm sorry I have to punch this in again. I'll change my password after this. Okay, but I want every school to improve by 0.5. I want to have no schools on the lowest 5% list, and I think that will happen this year. Improve the acquisition rates of IB diplomas. Last year there was 1 IB diploma awarded at City High. This year there are 12 IB diplomas rewarded at City High. We continue to get better. Increase proficiency levels in all areas. Improve the attainment rate of work keys. I want to hit that 100%. Always increase graduation rates. Reduce chronic absenteeism. And we have to absolutely do the last bullet. Stabilize and improve enrollment in each building. The principals need to wrap their heads around this enrollment piece. And, you know, I've been pretty firm about these achievement metrics, but we need to stabilize enrollment and improve enrollment. So with that, any questions?
Well, I
Nice
think
work.
that we need to communicate with our parents what you're doing is, and that is that we're showing improvement.
That's right.
And that, you know, if your kid comes to one of our high schools, that's what you can expect, that they're gonna be ready for college, you know, and the workforce. The other thing too with City and the IB, the other thing that we need to, I'd like to hear more of, and that is, hopefully these seniors that have graduated can tell us that in fact, that they're getting 3s and 4s or 5s in these scores in IB, that in fact is helping them pass out of classes, English, math, and so forth. I think we need that report back. We need some word about that, because from what I'm hearing, a lot of kids are excited because once they got their scores back and they reported those out to the colleges, they're testing out of math, they're testing out of, I mean, they're going into higher level stuff, which means more options for them, you know, more exciting things in terms of what they want to do. And that's something that we need to hear more of.
Well, I have a
Kids
couple,
are doing that.
I have a couple of daughters, and I would rather pay for 3 years of college instead of 4 years of college.
Yeah,
So you get there by IB classes, AP classes, dual enrollment classes, direct credit classes. We can do those, it'll save us money in the long run.
absolutely.
Yes, sir.
You know, what I like to see happen, I want to see more than just 18%. I want to see 20. I want to see the percent that the city has, but I know it's going to take time to get there.
This is what.
Wait a minute, let me finish though.
I'm sorry,
it's
Go
not,
ahead, please.
it's-
18 is though the score.
Yeah, I know,
college
I
rating
know,
score. Okay.
I know. But what I'm looking at is the fact that something good is happening.
That's right.
And I think that the results over the next 2 to 3 years is going to get better. And when it does, I think that when we come to graduations, instead of seeing our kids going to Grand Rapids Community College, we'll see them going to other colleges as well, more than just Grand Rapids JC. So, I mean, once again, I'm glad to see this score. I really am. Because all the data that I've been reading all summer long has been somewhat discouraging, but today, I can honestly say I see some improvement.
And, you know, Monica, she wrote a wonderful article about this, I think about a week and a half ago. And she just always continues to be a champion for the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And, you know, lots of times we hear the negatives, there are
Right.
lots of positives.
Right.
And if we truly believe that all kids can learn, right, we better show some results. And I
Yep.
believe it's starting to happen. What I don't want to happen, although I would love it, I don't want to see these huge jumps. Because when I see huge jumps, I'm really skeptical of huge jumps. Did you do some kind of technical thing?
Right.
I like seeing the progress the way it's happening.
Right.
We continue to get better every single year.
I agree.
So would I love to come and say, hey, everybody's over 20 next year? If I say that, you need to be a little skeptical, right? Because we're doing it the right way.
All right.
Sounds great.
Anything else?
Very
Well,
good, thank you.
I think a lot of young families too are looking at us, you know, GRPS, and wanting to see, because they see the value of public education, but also want to see, is my kid gonna learn? Are they gonna be ready for college, which is something that, you know, we're shooting for, kinds of things. So we're definitely showing that, so that's exciting.
And what's ironic is, you know, sometimes folks leave where the grass is perceived to be a little bit greener. And when you peel back the onion, we're outperforming many of the places to which our students are going. And I will have a report to you which will show comparison of GRPS with schools in Kent and Ottawa County, as well as all the charter schools in the region. And I'm working on that now, actually, have it handwritten form, but I'll type it up and make it nice for you.
So thanks. I think, and again, this was on the fly
That's
right
all right,
before.
sorry.
No. We
It's good.
definitely
Glad we
appreciate
saw
it.
it.
It's fantastic. I think the idea of having district-wide 18 and then later on every high school have an 18, because if 18 is the college readiness number, then that's, you know.
We'll get there.
But it's
Absolutely.
pretty fantastic. I think that, again, I wanted an update partly because of the article that came out last week and people talking about it. But I wanted to, but I also think that this story will get lost in the summer. And, you know, so perhaps we could have either whenever the board retreat happens, or perhaps a board meeting in the fall, the entire board getting a chance to do it. Well,
I
I
think
guess
that's a good idea.
we'll discuss it probably briefly at our
Yeah.
next meeting, but again, our summer meetings are so kind of, we don't seem to miss. I think it's something that we need to make sure we highlight again, so that way the rest of the board knows. I mean, that's close. I mean, that 18 number, I mean, to be either 0.4 or 0.5
That's-
away from that 18, to the average student at least is college ready. We have to move it. We still have to keep moving it, but that's pretty close, so,
Bring that up
Yeah.
at full board meetings so that
yeah, so,
everybody's attuned to the fact that you're on the move.
so that's fantastic.
And parents are thinking
And
too.
challenge those
so-
charter schools.
I'll have everything for you. I'm putting it together now. Thank you.
All right, we do have, it looks like we're skirting around the real agenda, right? It's like, is there anyone else that can speak before we do this?
Are you doing 20 minutes per?
Do it in 3 if you guys have no questions.
How about if, yeah, well, let's try to keep it at
I won't have any
1
questions
minute
for
per.
Well, actually, I'm Leanne Lang. I came probably one of the first times to talk about the priority schools with you. One of the requirements for priority and focus schools, as you know. Really, it's just a quick briefing of what went on this school year. You have reports from multiple schools that you see in the list here on the agenda. The only one you will not see is from Coit. We did request a few revisions to be made, and she was out of the country for a couple of weeks. We didn't get it in time to put into the packet, so we'll submit that with the next meeting. But just to give you a quick update of the 2013-14 school year and what we experienced with the priority schools and focus school this year. So as you know, the schools that were identified in August 2012 and at top to bottom list that we've talked about, those were what we called our year 2 schools. This year they had the MDE monitor come into their programs, and really the role this year was, were they implementing what they put in their reform and redesign plan? So that was really the focus for those year 2 schools this year. So we spent a lot of time with MDE, which we haven't had in the past for our priority schools, and, really looking at those plans and what evidence we could see in the schools of those being implemented. Next year, they'll be considered the year 3 schools. MDE will continue to monitor those programs, but now they're going to start looking at student data. So we'll still look and see, are they implementing all those things that are from their reform and redesign plan? We call them the R&R plan. But now we're also going to be taking a look with MDE at student data to see if we can have a correlation with student achievement along with these strategies that they chose to see if it's making an impact academically in their buildings. The schools that were identified August 2013, those were called our year 1 schools. So this year, they were designing their plans. So for them, they really did not have much in the way of MDE monitoring, but they did have some support, especially toward the end of the school year, to see if what they chose in their plans really was something that they should implement. And they did talk about ways that they will be implementing it during the school year next year. So these year 1 schools from this year will be considered year 2 schools next year, where MDE will then be kind of performing what they did with our year 2 schools this year, looking at the implementation levels of their plans in the building. So as you know or do not know, in August, probably the first week of August, a new top to bottom list will be coming out, where we'll find out kind of where we stand with the different schools' focus, reward, or priority. So at that point, we'll have to make decisions as far as what plans may or may not be chosen if we have schools that are identified in that listing. And we'll be presenting those schools as well next year. So one of the things I think that we struggled with this year, because this was new for us coming to you for the Academic Achievement Committee, was really what information do you want from our schools? So we could potentially have 3 different levels of implementation happening next year from our year 3s, our year 2, and then the potentially newly identified schools that would be called year 1s, how we would go about having these schools present. Because we know that we have 11 schools now. If we were to add more in August, that number increases, and it gets very difficult to have schools come in and do their, come in and share all their information. So we need to, I think, kind of come up together at some point how we want to proceed with this in the future if we do add any additional schools in August. So we can make sure that you're still getting the information that you really want to know, and if we need some to come at times, and other times let's provide reports like we've been doing, so we can make sure works for everyone.
I would say, why don't we, well, first of all, let's hope that we don't have any new schools, so hopefully we'll have
Let's
no
hope
year
that,
1
yes.
schools next year, and that will make things at least no more difficult than they were this
Right.
year, which would, but secondly, we should have just an extended discussion, because these committee meetings then ended up becoming priority school updates, and they got pretty lengthy, and to some extent, it was really, I think that we learned a lot as a committee, but I don't know that we, by knowing as much as we ended up knowing, it was much of a help to either the principals who took their time to present it to us, or to us as board members to making decisions. My concern, especially since there is oversight from the MDE, is to know that planning is taking place, and that planning is collaborative and has all the people in place, which it always seemed to be, that the MDE was aware of it and okay with the plans that were being created. And then when the MDE was doing their monitoring, that they were actually following through, and they weren't finding any problems. So to some extent, but I guess maybe we can just discuss it, because part of the reason to do this is because the MDE is asking you to do it. So what is it that they expect the board to do with the information that they give to us?
That's always the question that we ask them. You know,
Right.
When we first found out that we had to have a presentation to the board, our first question was, what specifically do we need to have? Is it face-to-face? And it really had not been defined. So it almost is like it's created as we go, so there might be more answers to those questions that we had after they see how it went with this initial year. There might be more of a guideline for us to follow for next year, but as of right now, we still don't have any further information from what we did last year.
I mean, from an oversight perspective, it seems like as long as the people who are experts are coming in and are assessing us, are saying things are working well, then that's obviously what our concerns are. But it is, although it is nice to know this stuff, and I think that we also learned a lot about the data. I mean, I think that some of your interest got sparked by looking at this early data. And so, so we can just, let's just decide in September what that will look like, rather
That's a
than,
good idea.
rather than deciding now. But this is good. I mean, I think that this, much of this is pretty short and sweet and gives us the data, and, you know, we can spend time with it individually as well, so.
I know that for me, what would be interesting to know, if a school is in a priority list, is to, you know, aside from the technical and some of the academic things that obviously teachers are doing and it's trickling to students, is the kind of partnerships that are needed to move that along. So what's a school doing with its partnerships within the community or whoever wants to partner with them in order to help them achieve areas that either that they can't or they don't have the personnel, but the resources are there and need to be mobilized. So to me, that's really critical. And then the other piece is the parent piece. How much information do our parents know about their priority school that are helping them? Because as a parent, if my school is in priority, what do I have to do? What can I do? Obviously for my kid, maybe I'm the kind of parent that says, hey, you know what, I have extra time, and I would love to be able to do something if I knew what to do. So that would be really critical, you know, when principals are doing those kinds of plans to figure out, I know the PTCCs and all those kinds of things are in movement, but that's, especially with a priority school, that to me would be important as well to hear.
That's something we could talk about in September, because those questions that you're talking about were never part of any of the forms that we asked them to complete.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's something we can look at, even though they have a lot of this information in their plans, whether it's in our R&R plan specifically or in their school improvement plans, it would not be difficult for us to get that.
I think that's good, because right now you're really having to report certain data
Yes.
required by the state. And what you're asking is a little more, so a little more meaningful, perhaps.
Well, yeah,
So
I think also,
I think it's a
yeah.
good point to discuss, what is it that you're required to report, what good is it to us? I mean, what are
Right.
we gonna do with all of this information? Is it just like, okay, I've got it in front of me, I read it? And then, you know, so I think it's a good discussion to have, to figure out what do they want? And what helps you and principals, and otherwise we just get a report.
Yeah, and the other, the thing that's, I'm torn because I like the distinctiveness of each of these reports, but then when I read them, they all do different things. And so I'd hate to impose something that is something, so anyway, that's
We
just,
always start with kind of a framework, but everyone always wants to make it their own, and so
Okay.
it tweaks every time, so we give them a template and it comes back.
although this is,
different every time, so.
although this is,
we
they've
stopped
done a
fighting
good
it.
job with at least,
Yeah.
none of them are more than 2.5 pages, so that's great.
Exactly, that was one of our rules, you know, we said we gotta post this online, so we need to keep it a little smaller, but.
So I think that you can tell the state that we have heard, that the board has heard.
But we do have
You
to
report-
report through
you
Jem,
did
so
report
they
to the
know,
report,
we have to
and
give
then
our reports on the dates that they've
We'll
reported
get
to
more
you.
substantive in September as to how we go forward.
Okay.
Did you guys want any more discussion of that? So, all right.
That's a good-
I read that
Have a
right.
discussion, decide what the state needs, and what we
Yep.
can do to make a difference.
That's good.
Sounds perfect.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Monica's the only person left in the room. That's what you're gonna say? You just,
That's
You
true,
gonna tell us
isn't
what
it?
you're writing? Or we just have to wait and read it? Okay. The state, the MDE? Well, the MDE would be, their staff is the one, is it this MDE make the decisions? So it's their staff working on it, not,
MDE makes.
not the, board.
No, so how often
Not
do
the
the
state
board
board,
meets?
no,
Do
no.
they board
The
meet?
board meets monthly?
There you are.
I tell you what, I know of a state board member who would love to have you go along with her and spend the day. No. Actually, I did it once. I mean, and I know I looked at my watch a lot, but I, in retrospect, appreciate having seen it. Because I actually at least came to understand them as humans more than. Lupe.
Oh, no.
In my experience.
She would love it. You would have, I bet you would have.
Like, what did they do?
I had Loopy back there one day. Loopy talked my head off. I said, Loopy, I don't wanna hear no more. To go with her, I know I'm in big trouble.
You would love it a lot, man. You'd meet everybody.
Yeah, she's
You'd meet Fred again, you know, and, actually, I really
Yep, no problem. Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
take care, Ron.